This video is about 7 decades that we could have got wrong with our generation, and it's something very important that we need to consider. And what I want to talk about today, this video, is what was it that we got wrong, and maybe what did we get right in the future? Because one of the areas that I have been involved in most of my life is sport. I started out when I was at school wanting to do every single sport that existed. I was never limited until later on when I wanted to choose a particular sport myself. But I did notice in that era when I was a student how girls were sort of forced to do things that they didn't necessarily want to do. I mean, in the 20th century, in the 1970s, all the way through till probably as far as 1990s, and even further than that, that physical education in schools segregated the genders. So what you had was that the boys would always do things like cricket, rugby and football, and the girls were always rooted towards tennis, netball and rounders. Now, this is totally wrong. And when I look back at it now, I cringed and think, why did we do this? But it was the way I came into life, and it seemed to be the done thing and everything else. Girls were meant to do this, boys were meant to do that, and look how far we've come. And it is important. Now, as a student, I actually went to a school in Yorkshire, and I was already at the age of 14 training as a tennis player. I didn't want to play cricket. I could play cricket, but I didn't enjoy cricket. But every time it came to PE and sports and major games that we did, I had to go and play cricket. So in the end, I took it upon myself when I was starting to play more tennis to go to the head teacher and say, look, I actually play tennis and it's a great sport for not just girls, it's a great sport for boys. And I did actually manage to get there. And by the time I was 17, we had got tennis up and running in the secondary school. But that was against the grain. It really was against the grain. When it finally sort of started to take place was much later on. Now, as a teacher, I went into PE teaching. From 1981, I was in schools, and my major area was the PE teacher. And I found it frustrating that when I was doing PE, again, there was this segregation that we had to follow. And I came across a couple of girls who came up to me and said, look, I really want to play football and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, that's a great thing. And I would be happy to, do a session with you to do this game. But I was frowned upon, and I could not take it further. I could not let the girls get in and merge in with some of the boys. Some of the girls were better than the boys. And to be honest, we shouldn't ever judge by gender. Now, there is a downside to this, obviously. Boys are more physically stronger. So there were elements where you could understand that they didn't want to have too much contact sport between the two genders later on. But, we did move forward, and look where we are today. We actually have a situation where we now have a massive following across, not only in the UK, but across the world, where girls are now playing football, they're playing nationally, they're playing internationally, they're playing in their own countries, and we have now come a long way. And I just regret that at the time that I was doing my PE teaching, that I wasn't able to be part of the era that's happened today. Anyway, the thing is, when we look at this now, we look at the way certain things started to happen. I remember watching a film, Bend It Like Beckham, and it was about a girl who wanted to get into football, but it wasn't really became mainstream, but it was something where she went against the grain of her family, and she ended up playing an amazing game. Anyway, let's get all your thoughts and information and all your ideas, and please comment on what your views were in this era. How do you agree with the generation legacy, or do you see it differently? Whether you're 20 or 80, I want to hear your perspective. So let's discuss. Fantastic.